To introduce themselves as well. So,
Rami. And Manuel. Hi.
Yeah, so before we start, I want to know who's speaking first in every single team. So in opening government,
Lydia speaking first.
And Pablo speaking second.
Okay, opening opposition.
Ilya speaking first, no preference.
And I'm speaking second, no preference. Closing government.
Anthony speaking first, no preference. Javier speaking second, no preference.
Closing opposition.
I'm watching speaking first, I have no preference.
Chris speaking second, no preference.
Okay, so rules are as before. If there are no questions, I would like to welcome the Prime Minister here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we see in the status quo at the moment, like, even though the world has made huge progress in terms of women's rights, women's empowerment, and equality towards men, there is still a very long way to go. Women have still not reached that point where they can be considered equal to men. They are still, in fact, considered to be inferior, especially in fields such as science, such as technology, such as research, where men are dominating the field and, in fact, consider themselves to be better than women at that. So for this reason, on-site government, we believe that states should significantly fund female-only tech companies in order to resolve this issue and bring about equality to a larger degree between the two sexes. So before I move on to my argument about why this is important, why it should be tech companies, and why it is extremely important that it is female-only, and how even a few men within the company would be harmful towards achieving this goal, I would like to give you a brief definition so that we know sort of like along what lines we're talking about. So when we say that states should significantly fund female-only companies, we believe that this should be the government that funds, for example, startup companies or new technology companies that are started by women in order to encourage and incentivize women to come up with their own new ideas, to launch products, and to be part of this industry. Okay, so when we say female only, we believe that these companies should be run by females, so like the boss should be female, the people in the science team behind it should also be female, as well as the employees. Okay, so moving on from that, sure.
Does this all tell women that they need their own separate sphere to succeed and cannot succeed alongside men?
Thank you very much. I'm actually going to talk about this in my case. I'll point it out to you when I'm answering your question. Okay, so why do we believe that this should happen within tech companies? As I explained in my introduction, tech companies, as well as other science fields, are extremely male-dominated in the status quo. Also, these are fields that are generating a lot of wealth. They're rapidly rising, and in fact, they are the field of tomorrow. It is something that is going to be necessary all the time. Like, as we move to a more like science-oriented world, technology is going to grow. There's going to be more jobs with technology, and basically these are skills for the future that everybody is going to have at some point. Nevertheless, we see that the focus is given to males rather than females. So a man is more inclined to go to university to study technology or to study science in order to gain a degree or perhaps work in these fields. Which means that it's the men who have the encouragement, it's the men who eventually tend to develop more products. So we can see this can see this even in news headlines. So whenever we hear about a new product, it's a guy like Steve Jobs, it's a guy like Bill Gates who's developed the product. You almost never hear about women in the news developing new software or developing an application that is widely used by people all over the world. So this is why we believe that it's very important to bring more women into the technology industry, exactly because it is the industry of tomorrow, because there are a lot of jobs, yet not quite enough women doing these. Okay, so moving on. Why do we find it so important that it is only women who gain these privileges, who gain this funding from the government? Okay, so as I mentioned previously, sort of with STEM subjects, so like science, technology, all this, is perceived as being something that is mostly for men. And this is a narrative that is sort of ingrained into people from a very early age. It's something that we see in school, so even like in the toys that children buy. For example, like if you buy like a toy microscope, like it'll have a picture of a boy on the front rather than the girls that get toys such as dolls, etc. So this is something that that people get ingrained into them from a very early age, meaning that less women have this encouragement from the beginning to enter these fields, which is something that we want to change. Okay, so yeah, so why do we want women only? We believe that even a few men are going to be harmful in this industry because exactly people have this idea from a very early age that it is men who are better at science, that it is men who are better at technology. We believe that even if there are a few men in the company, credit will tend to be given to them rather than the females who deserve it. So we believe that it sends a much more powerful message if the company is run and has employees who are women only. It means that there can be no doubt that the product or the application that is created has been invented by women, has been run by women, and is successful due to female ingenuity. So basically that we believe that it sends a much stronger statement. Moving on, why do we believe that this is actually going to raise the amount of equality that we have between the two sexes? So in the status quo, as I explained, we have this bias within schools, we have this bias that reaches the university system where we see a lot more men going into technology and science fields than women. And this is something that also translates into the workplace. So even if a few women do work in a technology company, it's going to be largely thought by others that it is the men who are responsible for the success. This means that so the women in the status quo are not as inclined and they are not as incentivized to gain these to get to these work positions. Even if they do actually manage to work in a technology company, they might not be able to reach the level that they might have otherwise because it is male dominated and because they do not feel as comfortable, or they might feel like that they're not appreciated as much as they could be. So what changes under our side of the house? Basically, we challenge the status quo. We say that yes, women can work in the technology industry and they can succeed in that. So there's more focus for women, and once they are in the workplace, they are more likely to succeed because they don't have to be afraid of a man taking all their glory. The opposition might come up here and say that this is going to create the perception that women don't actually deserve this. But we believe that they are already capable and that women already do have the ideas and the skills necessary for success, but are just not given the opportunity. So for these reasons, we beg you to propose.
I thank speaker for that speech and would like to welcome the leader of opposition.
Just a second.
Ladies and gentlemen, 3 points in my speech. First, I'll talk about what kind of message this sends to the society. Secondly, I'll talk about why it creates less incentives for other tech companies to fight sexism at the workplace. And finally, I'll talk about why actually government as a stakeholder in this particular case is a very bad actor to make such decisions in terms of which startups and which tech companies to fund and which not to fund. But before that, just one point of extraneous rebuttal, and then the rest will be integrated into my speech. We hear from the opening government that there is already in our society an idea that men are better at science and therefore they want to change it. But there is no explanation whatsoever as to how their particular model is going to do this. We believe that already in the status quo the situation is changing. More and more women actually go to tech universities, and then more and more women work in IT. There are even examples, unfortunately not enough examples yet, but we're getting there, of women becoming CEOs of a lot of huge technological companies. And what actually the opening government wants is, to set some example for women to be, to look at them and inspire them, and then go to universities. We believe that the example of such CEOs, for example, the CEO of Yahoo, is like the very reason that this message is so powerful is because there was no specific conditions for women, for example, to succeed in these companies, but because they fought worked with other men and succeeded. We believe that we need to work in this direction, and we believe there are better alternatives to the ones that are proposed by the opening government. For example, we believe that affirmative action in this situation is much more successful, because yes, we can say that you help a woman find a job, but at the end of the day, it's up to her whether she succeeds in this job or not. And we believe that this is much less discriminating towards her, and this does not send a message that women are somehow inferior and cannot succeed on their own. Because basically what the government does when it decides to fund specifically these companies is it sends the message that we tried to fight sexism at the workplace and we failed. Now it's better to create some separate workplaces, some kind of segregation. But what we on our side of the house are talking today about is dealing with the problem itself of discrimination, and not just trying to avoid this problem and forget about it, because this is exactly what the opening government is talking about. We can't find sexism, so let's fund some separate companies. And we believe that you just try to pretend that the problem doesn't exist. You don't actually widen the options for women in terms of what kind of workplaces they can find, because a lot of these women want to work for Google, want to work for Facebook, want to work for Apple, etc., etc., etc. But you create conditions in which they're forced basically to go and work for women tech companies only. And this is exactly what I'm going to talk about, why creating such policies you actually create less incentive for other companies to fight sexism, and therefore you basically force these women to go to women-only tech companies. Well, first of all, because women who are not satisfied with some conditions of their workplaces, now they know that there are tech companies that they can go to in which they will not face this discrimination, in which they will be only women. Therefore, they're much less likely to report some kind of cases of sexism at their workplace, and they're more easier to find some easy way out and go to a different workplace. We believe that in these conditions, the amount of pressure on such tech companies to change sexist policy that they may have actually decreases, and we believe this is highly problematic. Secondly, later, even if such complaints actually occur in these companies, we still believe that the incentives to change the situation is small, because if you don't like something, basically what these companies can tell, if you don't like something, there are other companies, like women-only tech companies that you can go to. Because basically, if there are companies in which there are only women, in which no men are allowed, the only logical answer for other tech companies will be that yes, then for us it is okay to have, for example, men-only companies, and we believe that is also problematic, especially because of what I have previously said. Because a lot of these women won't actually work for other companies. They don't specifically want to work for these startups or for these tech companies. They want to work for big companies, and you decrease the amount of pressure on them, and therefore decrease the incentive for them to change the policies. I will take closing if you have any questions. See none. Opening.
Okay, so what you're saying is we're not limiting their options. We're actually giving them more options and more opportunities. Of course, they can still
Yes,
work
I have
remotely.
just described why you're actually limiting their options, because you create for other companies less incentives to fight sexism and discrimination at the workplace, and we believe it's highly problematic, and we believe that you, instead of dealing with this problem through other means, for example, affirmative action, you just try to forget about this problem and avoid dealing with this. But more importantly, even if we pretended like this was okay, which it's not, but even in the best scenario for the government, why we still think that it is highly problematic that the government would fund these startups and tech companies. Well, the first problem why it is highly problematic is because look at other tech companies and other startups, how actually they function. They never attract investments from the governments because they understand that this is not the best actor to make such decisions. Basically, there are in the vast majority of the cases they attract private investments, and what you're basically doing is saying that you can't do this on their own. You can't find your own private investments for your tech companies, for your startups. Therefore, you need to go to the government and ask for their help. And you also, for the second time, you create, the atmosphere of inferiority of women, that they cannot do this on their own. This is not to say that states shouldn't help companies, such women-only tech companies whatsoever. We just believe that funding is definitely not the way to go. Why? Because governments are very bad at investing money. There is not something that they often do. They don't have enough resources. They don't have enough expertise. We believe that private companies are much better at at funding and investing in these companies. It is very likely that in these conditions, governments will make very poor investment decisions. It is problematic in two ways. Well, first of all, because if the opening government started talking about startups, they pop up very often and they fail very often as well. And it is okay. But if you say that this was a startup that was specifically funded by the government and was only for women, we believe that the message it will send to the society that even with all the help, such women cannot succeed in creating their own tech companies. So for all these reasons, first of all, because it sends the wrong message to the society. Second of all, because it decreases the amount of incentives to fight sexism in other tech companies. We are more than proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. We'd like to welcome the DPM.
Points of rebuttal before moving to a constructive, right? First one. So the leader of the opposition comes up here and he talks about this affirmative action. Now what we say is that when you're reserving specific seats at the university for Afro-Americans, yes, we understand how it might be perceived that they might get to the university even though they don't deserve it. We do not agree, but we understand how it might be perceived. In our case, what we're doing is that we're giving the opportunity for women to take the job, but it doesn't just stop there. The success is not that they just get the job, but it is that they actually manage to invent and to innovate in this tech company. Hence, affirmative action cannot be applied to this case exactly because the very thing that we offer is the success that those companies bring. Second point of rebuttal is their point about how startups are actually going to fail and how this will create a negative image for women in the tech industry. What we say to that is that exactly because startups are over-glamorized, what that means is that we tend to emphasize to the startups that succeed and not to the startups that fail. Hence, it is more likely that the startups that are all women and have managed to succeed will be able to bring a better view, a more positive view for women on this specific industry rather than make it worse, which is what Team Government has been trying to claim. Third point of rebuttal, they go like his major argument is how this is going to make conditions for women in the current companies, for example Google or Microsoft, how this is going to make it worse. Two reasons why we think that they will not get worse. The first reason is because those companies will still have an incentive to actually employ women who are good at their job, right? So if you're Microsoft, you're still as likely to employ a woman who is good at her job, unlike what they have been trying to say, which is that they will try to become all male. No, all male companies are not necessarily as good as a mixed gender company, right? The second reason why they're not as inclined to do so is that because of image and negativity, right? So imagine what would happen if Google went on and was going like, yeah, I only start hiring males from now on. This is simply not realistic because it would hurt the image of Google in an extremely negative way, and hence it would be very bad for their publicity. Hence they would be as inclined to employ women as they are at the status quo. Now, before going to my constructive, sure, I'll take opening first.
We're not saying that these big technological companies will start hiring only men. We're just saying that they have less incentives to deal with specific cases of discrimination at the workplaces.
Exactly. Now imagine the image that Google will have if, for example, they are accused of being a sexist company that might not hire women or might hire women but not fight discrimination in the workplace. What we say is that those very companies have a very strong motive to actually go on and combat discrimination in the work field for several reasons that I've already provided. Now moving to more constructive. So, firstly, why is this better than the status quo, right? In terms of women being more inclined to actually purchase a career, to go for a career in the industry companies, right? In the tech companies. So, what we get at the status quo is that you might think that you cannot get a right job, right? So like, if suppose that you're a woman who's growing up and who's about to choose their major field of studies, at the status quo you'll think that this is a male-dominated world, which means that due to stereotypes, it might be more difficult for you to find a job than it will be for your male peer, right? Now, once we actually have those companies that are all female, you understand that you have better chances of employability, right? Which means that it is more likely that once you graduate, you'll be able to get a good job with a good salary. Hence, if you really like the industry, you will have more incentives to actually go on and study what you like and then work on the field that you like. Unlike what is happening at the status quo, which is we're disincentivizing women from actually going after such careers. Now, the second thing is that once they have actually become part of such a workplace, right, of an all-female workplace, it is more likely that they will actually succeed at this workplace. Why is that the case? Firstly, because at the status quo, in such companies, in the traditional companies that they have been describing, there's already some sort of discrimination, right? And then discrimination in terms of, for example, sexual harassment, or even in terms of, for example, not taking credits for what you deserve simply because you're a woman. Now, what we say is that once you get those startups or those companies that are all female, firstly, there's no way that a male will be able to get the credits for you simply because they're male. Hence, it is more likely that we will empower women and we will give them ownership of what they're actually able to innovate and they're able to create. And the second thing that we will do is that there is no way that there will be discrimination due to their gender in those workplaces that are all female and that do not have any males at all. Is there any point from closing?
Yes, Snapchat is currently failing in the share price. SoundCloud we went bankrupt. So when tech companies fail, don't you have to accept that they are publicly shamed and publicly bred to the knowledge that they're doing badly?
I already explained that. I will explain it a bit more. Maybe I didn't give enough material. So what we're saying is that startups is an industry that tends to focus very much on the companies that actually succeed in bringing more products, in bringing more innovation, in bringing in succeeding, and not in the ones that are failing. If you open the TV, if you open Facebook, you're more likely to see how a new startup succeeded rather than how a startup failed. This is not something you see due to the culture of glamorizing startups. Hence, we do believe that by having all-female startups or all-female companies operating in the tech industry, we will share the success stories rather than the fail stories, which means that it will shape the image that society has at the status quo about women of not being able to go after what they want. Yes. Now, the final point that I want to make is that why do men take credit in a company of mixed genders, right, where you have both males and females? Why is that happening at the status quo, and why will this not happen under our case? Now the reason why that happens is because it tends to reaffirm certain stereotypes that society already has, which means that society right now has a stereotype that men are doing better in this specific industry. Which means that when you get this company with mixed genders, which has both males and females, when you get this company, and someone from the inside actually innovates something, so produces the new application for iPhone, it is more likely that this will be credited to a male peer rather than a female peer, simply because this reaffirms the stereotype that men are doing better in the industry than women are. Once you have an all-female industry that has no males at all, it is more likely that you will give credit to the gender that deserves it, which is women, and hence you will create a more positive image of genders within the workplace of tech industries. Thank you.
Thanks, speaker, for that speech. I would like to welcome the Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Dear panel, thank you for the floor. And before we proceed to the main body of the debates, I'm going to clarify what we are actually talking about in this case. We think that in here it is not by itself important whether women have like 50-50 share in a global company, but it's rather what is important that we remove the stereotypes and the discrimination. And therefore, just by employing more women to the tech industry, we do not think that it brings automatically less discrimination to the society. And therefore, we believe that if we, as the opposition, prove to you that the situation is going to worsen, although we will have more women employees, we win this debate. Before I proceed to my rebuttal, what I'm going to talk about. Firstly, I'm going to explain to you why women actually will be incentivized to choose these companies over the companies that exist. And secondly, I'm going to talk about why I believe that women will have less opportunity to succeed in there. And third, I'm going to explain to you why it actually doesn't eradicate discrimination, but rather preserve the stereotypes that exist. Before that, first, what we hear from them. They say the affirmative action doesn't work because people perceive it as an unfair thing. We have to understand that backlash exists on both sides of the house, and a lot of men who are conservative or probably just do not believe women have equal rights, they probably will backlash on the policy as well. But the comparative in here, and this is what my partner tells you, is that when we have the affirmative action, women just get the position inside of the company. But if women does not succeed in working inside of the company, she gets fired. And in there, women simply stay in the company and they work together with male, and they're perceived as just equal workers for the reason that if they do not fulfill the conditions of working, they will be fired. But in the situation when they have a female-only company, the comparative is that they will simply be perceived as women who do not compete with men, women who simply work only with women, and this is the only ability that they have. And this is the comparative in here. That's why I believe the affirmative action much better. Secondly, what they tell us is that the image of Google will worsen if they employ only men. No, we do not believe in this. For the reason that if women by themselves just choose to go to these companies which are only female, female startups and etc., it won't be perceived as a mistake that Google made, but rather will be perceived as a success that Google had, because they allowed these women to go there and have the better life. And in this situation, I believe that exactly what my partner tells you is that discrimination is not going to happen inside of Google, but just for the reason that there will be less women because they're going to prioritize going to these companies, and therefore male workers will simply not meet on daily basis with a lot of women just to discriminate them, but they will preserve and uphold the views that they have. It doesn't change on their side of the house. Again, about startups being successful, we believe that maybe if they story about how you see on the TV the startup success succeeded is true, we believe that in this situation what happens is that the attention will be drawn to these female startups for the reason that they are very new and they are very progressive. We believe that in general it is a common knowledge that startups massively fail for the reason that they are new technologies and etc. And therefore we believe that when the attention is drawn and there are more chances that the startup will fail, fail, and there will be no men who were in charge in the startups, and women were just like separated, and there will be like the reason and pretext for talks that women are like the ones who are responsible for the failure of the startup, and therefore we will have no success story, or maybe we will have like 1 in 10 or 1 in 20. Or in this situation, it doesn't play that huge of a role. What it makes that women massively fail, and like the startups massively fail, and exactly because what they tell us that like normal startups where women and men work together are usually like only the attention is only drawn to the successful ones. The comparative like in the society will be like just simply that women tend to fail more for the reason that it will be covered better, for the reason that it will be in the mass media everywhere. So also the point that they bring in the last speech, we believe that like the credits given to male rather than female who designed the like app for like Apple Store or whatever, it's not true. We do not believe that we live like in the situation or in the society which has that massive discrimination. We believe that if woman designs an Apple like app, we believe that in this situation it is credited to a woman. We can check it online. You can check it like on the TV. It is very improbable and very unreasonable to say like that right now the actual success is attributed to male workers. We believe that it's over-exaggeration of the discrimination that happens. Let's now to my constructive. Firstly, we believe that women will be incentivized to choose these companies in the first place. Why? Because firstly, they are going to be portrayed as women-friendly, as very progressive, where you will be able to work like with women of the same gender, where you will be like free from discrimination and etc. Because right now, currently, after like all this news, you know, Google memo and etc., we believe the women are already like kind of share the stereotype that they are definitely going to be discriminated. Although this was like one man in like the whole company of Google, and we believe that women right now, under the pressure of mass media, under the pressure of stereotypes, and because it is going to be portrayed as a better option for women, and they will be probably, again, thinking about it, they will have high chances to succeed in there, they will choose and prioritize these companies. But why is it bad? Because firstly, we believe that startup never has the same power and resources as, for example, Google has. What does it mean? We believe that in this situation, when you do not have the same coverage, the same like ability to use resources, the same ability to hire engineers and pay them like massive amounts of money, what is going to happen is that these women are going to succeed, but probably they're not going to succeed at the level that, for example, CEOs of Google do, and not at the level that Google engineers do. What it's going to create is the narrative that women can succeed definitely, but they cannot succeed like men do. And it's and exactly because the women are going to be incentivized to go to these companies. There will be very few women left inside of the Google companies, and they're going to perceive as more male-oriented. In this situation, what it is going to create is the situation where women are going to be perceived like as able to do something, but not as good as male. And especially even success, what is going to come to the company, is always going to be questioned, because they're going to ask, and if there would be a male, probably he would succeed much better than this woman would. But in the situation comparative in here, when you have male and female equal shares, what happens is that they compete on the same basis, and if women succeed, they succeed over men. And we believe that it exactly proves the point. But most importantly in here, that yes, we believe that there will be less cases of discrimination, but only for the reason that men are going to like have less women in the companies, and they, like women, as I described, they're going to massively leave. And what we believe, it's only going to only preserve the problem, but it will be like looking like it is fine in this situation. Why? Because like the actual cases for discrimination are going to last, but they're not going to last because men are going to think that women are good or better or equal. But because they simply do not see them daily on a daily basis, or do not work with them on the same level. We think that in this situation it is only worse because we cannot challenge men on the same views that they have. We cannot actually improve the situation in its core. And for all of this reason, because we believe that women are going to massively leave, and because women won't be able to succeed that much, and it's going to create a bad narrative, we are more than proud to oppose the motion.
I thank speakers for that speech, and I would like to welcome the member of government.
Three pieces of direct rebuttal to crucial extensions. So rebuttal. First, they say this sends a message that women cannot succeed on their own. This assertion is based on two false assumptions. First, the false assumption that we stop fighting for conditions in the other tech firms. And second false assumption that the important thing is not whether they fight with help, but rather which they succeed or not. NASA is helped by the US government to achieve many things they do. But we don't say, oh, NASA went to the moon with the government aid. Yes, they did, but the important thing is succeed. So we do not think that people would have this belief. Second point, they say that this creates less incentives for tech companies to integration. This part of rebuttal is new material. We have reasons to believe that this is precisely the opposites. Two of them. First, the competition for new human capital. So we think that if there's many women going up for universities, Google, Facebook, and all those companies will have incentives to have better labor conditions in order to hire this new capital. So there's great capital over there, but we cannot hire them because they're going to prefer to go to those women industry, the ones, if they have better conditions over there. So there's an incentive to get new capital in competition. And secondly, because of the competition for the existing capital. So if we have better women in Google, they are going to new companies if those new companies provide of a new environment. So we think there's reasons to believe that the opposite will happen. Google and Facebook would be forced to have better environment. And thirdly, about the tech industry need private investment. This is based on a false paradigm. It is not necessary to be funded by private investment, but more important, we do not say that private investment would not arrive to those companies. Probably after the government, private investment would also arrive, would be happy that to happen, so this argument was not important in the debate. Extension in this debate, two of them. First, why is this going to work, which completes an essential, crucial link in this debate. Why are these firms going to work? And secondly, how is essential to fight in this way in the industry and the uniqueness of these measures. So first of it, why is this going to work? 4 pieces of extension here. First, because this is a business in current massive expansion. So tech industry is constantly having new inventions, and because we live in this century where everything is embedded, like we have new inventions every day, we think that's a business with a great power and great power of development. Second reason, because in this industry is great competitive advantage to have research and development, and it's essential to have money in this investment. 3 reasons to have it. First, because this constant evolution needs failure, and failure needs great capital investment. And secondly, because those failures many times get to the close of the business, or to going and closing important developments that could have led to important things. If we have government massive funding, the probability is that those new inventions arrive earlier in those companies because there's massive funding, and it is not important if they fail. The important thing is what they can provide us. So we think it's more probable of succeed with this government funding. Third motive why they're going to succeed is that the best woman human capital will go to those enterprises. 2 motives. First, because the workplace environment would be better for women in those places, at least in the short term, and we think that women empowering those social movements as feminism would go within those places. And second, because the working, studying woman would be also more motivated to go to these places because of the environment. So we think that the best woman capital would be there. And fourthly, and even most important in this debate and direct rebuttal to opening, government has a great amount of information and of great value, so it would be interesting of the government not only to investing, but investing in those industries they know they are going to work because they bear a lot of information where things are needed. They have a lot of metadata, they have a lot of things. On to the rebuttal, they say that even if they succeed, the important thing is that men are going to think about what would have happened if that would be men. This is false. When Marie Curie invented radiation, or when Albert Einstein invented whatever he invented, people do not think what would happen if he had been a woman or if he had been a man. The important thing is that he succeeded and provided us with many things. So the important thing is not whether he could have been done any other thing. So we think these things are going to work, but panel note that even if they fail, the important thing is that they would give better labor conditions in the existing firms, as I already exposed on Google, because of the need of competition for human capital. So they will succeed. But even if they didn't succeed, this is important, they would have better conditions in the long term for the existing tech industry. So this would be good. For the second point of extension, why this is unique and why do we need to have it on the tech industry? The tech industry is a field for leadership in many ways, 4 of them. First, it's a leader in the economic industry. We now have Google, Facebook, Microsoft, All of those companies are the image of leadership, the image of the economy. Second point, their progress, their invention. When we think of the new invention, we always think about tech. We have high quality science and we have a symbol of power. So the tech industry bears all of these characteristics that the common people make us think that it's a great industry. What is the problem actually with tech industry? It is not just, as opening government told you, that we have many men. Yes, that's a problem. But the problem is the tech industry bears the classic problems of Marxism. It bears the problem that men must embody that power, that science, that progress, that invention. It embodies all that characteristics and all that narrative. So it is essential to break that narrative. Why do we break narrative with this? Because we break the paradigm that all things that tech industry gave us, it is because of men. Why does this company only attribute Google, Facebook, the inventions to men? Because they were men funded on the vast majority of cases. Because they are most men based on the vast majority of cases. So we tell you that as they are men funded and men based with many of those companies, the social belief is that those men are the responsible of the success of those companies. So what we say is not only the role models opening government told you, it is the importance that we break the paradigm that tech leadership is only for men values and for power of men, of science of men, of leadership of men. The impact is that we break top down. We break the narrative and the mentality, those underlying mentality that this industry is such important as only must be dominated by men. So we think, and this is the crucial extension, the unique sense is that it's women. Because if all the women create this business, we cannot think about men doing anything, and we will not think about what could have men happen. So what did we tell you in this debate? On the comparative, even if we fail, which we are not, we have either getting better conditions in actual tech industry, or, which is the best case scenario, we get are broke in the paradigm of the actual society, and we bring men to the light, women to the light, and we give them what they deserve, which is equality with men in this industry. Thank you.
Next speaker for that speech, I would like to invite the member up.
Plessy and Ferguson in the United States courts said that separate but not equal wasn't okay, which firmly support that. A little bit of extraneous rebuttal, and we'll explain to you, the only thing to explain to you how the comparative between state-funded and venture capital means that these companies will inevitably fail, and the consequences arising from that. Opening opposition, touch on this briefly, we'll give you detailed analysis as to why that's true. Firstly, some extraneous rebuttal, right? Just briefly to the kind of government case as a whole, right? Closing government tells us a few things. Firstly, it's important to note, right, they tell us that massive government funding can exist. A couple of responses here, right? No, they can't just fiat in a massive amount of money, right? Governments don't have this money, okay? But even if that's not true, okay, let's just assume they can fiat in as much money as they want, right? The reason that's a problem is because companies don't just rely on money, right? They rely on expertise, know-how, contacts, networks. All of these are things that venture capital companies give them already. We'll explain that a little bit later on. The next thing we get is a little bit about better working conditions, right? A couple of responses again. No, there's no reason why working conditions necessarily get better, right? We don't get a lot of analysis on this. Note that like the inherent problems about long hours and all of those things are still going to exist. They're the kind of things that really do affect working conditions. But secondly, even if they do succeed, right, if they do get better working conditions, no thanks, these companies will still fail. Let's talk about that. Briefly, let's explain why changes are happening. 5 really, really quick reasons here, okay? Note there's already a societal conversation about women in STEM industries, trying to get them into these kinds of programs. Diversity programs like opening opposition talk about, and briefly we'll talk about. Just note, by the way, that like the CEO of Yahoo, the CEO of Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg, the CFO of I think Google, all of them are women. Right? Women are succeeding in tech already. Sure, it's not the world we want to see. It's already happening. Women are willing to throw all of that under the bus just for like something really quick. Right? Note their case entirely rests on all of these companies succeeding. Let's give you about 5 reasons why that's not going to happen.
Point.
Yeah, go on, actually.
Yeah, we proved that this is going to succeed, but even if it didn't, we proved why the competition for the new human capital is going to improve the conditions on those Google, Facebook, and other stuff. So we help the status quo. Why wouldn't we help with this competition?
Yeah, like competition and improving human capital literally doesn't matter if they fail. We're going to give you explicit analysis where they do. Right. let's talk about this. One, note the comparative here is government versus venture capital. Why is venture capital better? One reason, information and venture capital is integrated into networks, right? Venture capital companies have a massive amount of networks and contacts in the tech industry. They know board members, they know executives, they know all of those kinds of people who are crucial at providing know-how, contacts, and the kind of people who can get you to the market really quickly. That's the most crucial thing in tech, being able to get to market. Venture capital funds know how to do that, right? States won't do this. Why? One, they don't already, right? States don't have that kind of network in place already. They don't, like, typically ministers aren't going to be in like these kind of detailed contact in industries. But no, even if they were, right, even if they could just be at that end and assume they do, right, states have no incentive to, right, because you're in the world in which we live, politicians don't want to be too closely associated with business, right? There's political incentives not to be associated with business and seen as really, really corrupt, right? So politicians are never going to have the incentive to be that close to businesses. That means like civil servants aren't going to be able to provide the kind of network know-how and knowledge that venture capital firms do. No thanks, take a PI already. States, secondly, let's talk about how states let crucial information, right? States control like a country, okay? States are like, they have a massive amount of work to do. Venture capital firms are explicitly focused on data, solutions, those kinds of important stats that will help them determine which companies succeed, right? That means that realistically, in the world in which venture capital can afford massive amounts of money on consultants, advisors, all of the kinds of people who can give them good advice on which companies are likely to succeed, states can't do that. Why? Again, firstly, they don't have money, right? But even if they did, right, it's just unrealistic to assume that states suddenly start going to hire extreme amounts of consultants. Why? Because presumably venture capital provides much more money for consultants, right? So if I'm a consultant who wants to work for like tech industry, I'm not going to want to work for a state that's paying me nothing. I'm going to go to a venture capital company that's providing me massive amounts of money, right? So even on that comparative, venture capital firms are better at providing advice.
Point.
No thanks. Thirdly, states are really bureaucratic. Again, to emphasise the importance of getting to market quickly, right? Because if you're a tech company, the importance of getting to market cannot be understated. Why? Because, look, if another company gets to market first, you have to sue them, right? To patent infringement or IP, right? That's really, really expensive. Litigation is actually really expensive. So if you're a tech company, the most important thing you want to do is to get your product to market, get your app to market as soon as you can, right? Why is this a problem? States are really, really bad at doing this, right? They're inefficient and they're bureaucratic. Like, to get something done, you need approval from 5 civil servants and minister and probably the head of state, right? Realistically, in the world in which we live, that's going to take a long, long time, okay? So if states are funding you, you're going to need approval for all of those kinds of things. Realistically, venture capital is much faster at doing that. Realistically, companies are going to be able to get to market faster in our world. Fourthly, states have an incentive to invest. No incentive to invest in extreme success, right? It sounds really weird, but there's two reasons. One, note that massive amounts of success for a tech company means less revenue in tax, right? So Amazon and Google pay nothing in tax, right? In the countries in which they're in, right? They pay a low amount of tax in like Western democracies, and when they do pay taxes in like countries like tax havens or where they pay extremely low tax, right? So when the state's funding you, it has an incentive to let you get to like a kind of a semi-glass ceiling, but not to let you get to the top. What does this mean, right? So if you're in a women-only tech company, you're relying on the state for funding, that state is going to let you get to like a certain level, but not a really high level. Second reason why this is probably more important, right? Technology means like a massive amount of change, right? So for instance, Uber means taxi drivers end up jobless, Airbnb means hotels end up empty, right? Two consequences of this. The first is that it requires massive amounts of legislative changes, right? Driverless cars, Uber, require massive amount of legislation on zero-hour contracts and the way like the network of things works, right? That means that's a massive amount of work for a state to do, probably something it doesn't want. The second reason, right, is that it's extremely complex, which I've already covered. States probably don't want that kind of work. States probably don't want that. 4 reasons. The 5th reason is VC can provide support, right? Venture capital companies can provide a massive amount of experts. Actually, I've already gone through this, right? Briefly, what are the impacts? One, it means these tech companies do inevitably fail, right? In a world in which technology companies already fail, it's going to get infinitely worse. No, it's going to get worse for the women-only companies and not for Google, who can already rely on venture capital funding, right? That's important because now, typically male companies, right? That's the way it's going to be. Like Google and established tech companies who rely on state funding now have a comparative advantage, right? Because they're getting all of this stuff that women aren't, right? That means tech companies fail. 2, it's the message to women, right? It tells you as a woman who's studying a STEM subject, hey, your world is that one, you don't belong in the male world, you don't belong in the real world, right? So when you get to like Google or something, right, she's going to want to talk about, realistically, your peers are going to be saying, hey, why didn't you choose to work at another company? Even if it sounds like you want to have a good interest, it's like not an encouraging message to be told. Thirdly, fewer women will be in established tech. Fourthly, fifth, yeah, you know what, proud to propose.
Thanks, speakers, for that speech. We'd like to welcome the government with. Here.
Lots of plurality, then the comparative. Okay, I start with second opposition. They said that these enterprises will not succeed. 5 rebuttals to that. Here, first of all, the government, of course, they have the money. There is no investment bank in the world which has so much funding as the government, and also the motion say significantly funding. So the motion is saying we are going to invest massive amounts of money. Of course, we have the money. Second point, we have data. We don't have the data that they said. We have all the data you want. The government have all the data about the economy, but not only that. Third, they have all the data about the predictions of the economy, which sectors are better to invest, in which kind of research and development we have to invest. Because I know what is going to happen in the economy, or at least I know it better than investment banks, because I have the data of all the economy. Fourth, I have networks, but perhaps I don't have the same networks in the enterprises, but I have a more important network. I have networks with other countries. I can get investment from China. I can get investment from Africa. I can get the commodities that these enterprises and companies need. I have a lot of networks with not companies but government, which are much more important and can get deals for them. Of course, this is a good thing. And 5, this is the most important thing. They said it's more important the private investment. Okay, but the public investment is also an encouragement for the private to invest. Why is this the case? Because if the public invests, you are saying which is the government, I'm going to invest a lot of funding in this company, and I will not let this company break down. I will give them money for decades because I am interested in this project. I think that the women needs an own company. It's very probable that an investment bank say this company is very safe. I'm not going to lose my money because the government is financing them. It's much more probable to get money from a private investment bank if you are supported by the government, because they know you have a huge support. So this, with all the other extensions that gives my colleague Antonio, it's a good proof that why this will be a good company to succeed. Also, they didn't rebuttal the huge amount of money, how this is good for getting new success. If you all have to choose between 3 or 5 possible development and research projects, if you have massive funding from the government, you have the possibility of investing in all of them, and you don't care if it fails in the short term because you have funding for the government and you can succeed in the long term. This is the highly barrier in technology, that you cannot invest in everything you want. If you have massive funding from the government and for the investment banks which are encouraged with it, you have highly probability of succeeding, much higher than all the other startups and all the other companies. Second point of view. Why is not the same the positive action? This is very simple. All these companies, even in the best case, even if they apply all the positive action, because of the number of science students that go out of the faculty, are only going to be perhaps 30% of women. All the success of this company always going to be entitled for men. You are not going to get what we are trying to say in closing going, which is to break the narrative from the society, to break the narrative that say that the economic power, the power to take decisions, the high science, it belongs to men. You are not going to break this narrative with a 30% or 25%. At least it's not increasing, while in other part of the economy, like for example medicine, the number of women is constantly increasing. Since the 1980s, the number of women in college for high science is decreasing. So you are never going to break this paradigm. You are not going to break this narrative with positive actions, because you are not going to get such good percentage of women in that company that you will say, okay, they succeeded because of women. You will always say there are 70% of men. It's for them because you succeed. Okay, continue. Why it is not gonna put a narrative against women and in the weakness of the women? They say that because of the help the government is giving, you are gonna have the impression that the women needs help to succeed. This is not true. Nobody cares who gets the funding. For example, the NASA say my colleague, but also IBM when it started, this company get a massive funding from the state because they have a project which was very interesting for the United States Army. But nobody cares if you get the funding from the private or for the public. You only get if you get success. And if in 20 years or 30 years, because of the massive funding and because you try constantly and you continue investing in research and development, you get to succeed, nobody will care where the funding comes from. You say, okay, they get the project. They are fighting against other companies which are male, like Google, like Twitter, which have a very, very low percentage of women. So it's it's a success just of the women. It's the only way, this is important to understand, to get this narrative break, which is our extension. The only way to break this narrative is with this kind of company, because in the other companies will always be or share or will only for the men the pride of these achievements. Yes, I will take closing.
If women work for companies that are funded by government that are actually failing, will that not be to the detriment of the public image of women working for these
Yes, but
companies?
I'm saying that it's very, very, very unlikely that they fail. But even if they fail in the short term, with all the funding of the state in the long term, they are gonna succeed. And in this space, this is my fourth rebuttal, at least they will have improved the conditions of the women. And this is the fourth rebuttal. They say that we don't have we disencourage the hiring in Google and in other tech companies because they have this alternative. But I have two rebuttals. First, this is unlikely. Even if they are just a 15% or a 20%, this capital is needed in Google. You cannot lose a 20% of your capital one day to another. What's happened? These women are in these companies, but according to data, they are paid less than the men, and they have worse laboral conditions. They are not enough value. If you now are afraid of losing her, you cannot lose the 20% of the people who is working for you. You will have to improve those conditions. You have to maintain a percentage of people, and probably you have to give them best pay. But second, the scandal if you have zero women is huge. They say in the rebuttal that this is not true because there is no scandal. They are going because they want. But what will people think? People will think if they are all going out is because the bad conditions they have in Google or they have in Twitter. And this is very important. They cannot stand for people saying all the women are going out of Twitter and Google because the conditions are very bad. They will have to go to do something to stop the scandal. They will have to increase the salaries. They will have to improve the conditions in this company. So it will be much likely to them to do an increase in the salary and in the good condition. So finally, the comparative. What did they say? They said first that it increases the narrative of weakness. This is not true because in the end, what they only cares in the society is success or not, and nobody will remember it's 20 years ago it was funding with public funds. But even if it is right, it doesn't matter in the long term. They will succeed. They will break the narrative because everybody will know that women can succeed. And much important, they will have in all this time good laboral conditions both in this company and the companies private because of the comparative. And second, they say that these companies will fail. Plenty of reasons why this is not true, but even if it's true in the short term, in the long term, massive funding and the possibility of invest in all the possible research and development makes much likely that in the long term it will succeed. And if it succeeds, it will be the break of the narrative that we are defending. We are very proud to propose this one.
Thanks, speaker, for that speech. I would like to welcome the last speaker of this debate, the opposition wing. Here he is.
Ready? Okay, so 2 points of clashes mainly being identified in this debate. Is the state good at funding these type of companies, and are tech jobs good for women as well? What do we hear from side government in the point of is state good at funding? What we get is the government does have money, it does have the network, and it will fund failing companies as they essentially have the money. Yes, the government does have money, but the key thing that my partner identified is the network of venture capital that does succeed. Venture capitals work in a 10-to-1 game. You invest in 10, you give loads of expertise to them, you get other scientists to help them, they develop the new technology, you get a successful company. This is how the biotechnology sector, for example, works. This is the expertise that the government doesn't have. What they just told us is that they can get money from China. I don't care if I get money from China if I don't know what to do with it. So therefore, these companies will most likely not succeed. So therefore, they have money, great, okay, but the money isn't enough because you need the network, and they simply don't have the network. And the second thing what they do is they will fund failing companies and just give them more money as they are. No, thank you. So two problems with this is failing companies is not good for the public image of women. What do we get from this? Is we continuously keep failing companies going alive by giving them money out of China. That doesn't really help them because essentially now a woman gets a stigmatized image that like, oh, they work for this company. It's basically a public sector. They don't really have to do much because every time they go bankrupt, the government will build them out. This is not a for-profit company, which tech companies are. This is a public institution that is fake. No, thank you. And then second, these shareholders will care from China. So for example, every time they give more money, their share equity value will be diluted, which means the stake get less, which means the return on profit will be less. So therefore, at some point, these foreign countries will stop failing these funding enterprises as well, which will be to the detriment of failing women. No, thank you. So therefore, what do we get? So clearly, as we've actually shown, the side government doesn't really present a good case of why governments are good at funding company. What does Arjun really present in this debate of why they are? First of all, he explains why VC firms have no incentive under this house to actually fund women. No, VC firms are funded by endowment funds such as Harvard. No, thank you. By endowment funds of Harvard and private pensions, which under this motion do not have to now start funding women companies specifically. So therefore, women will not get specifically these equities and money from venture capital firms, and therefore the likelihood of them succeeding will be much less. And two, only the successful companies are really funded by these venture capital firms. So therefore, this links the key to why venture capital is etc. Google, Facebook, Twitter, they were all funded by these firms. Yes, they got a little bit of capital. Later on, they actually got governmental capital as well. But what was the key is that they went to venture capital firms such as Andreessen Horowitz, which knows everyone in Silicon Valley, that were able to bring key people to those companies, which enabled them to succeed. So therefore, there's two key reasons. They can bring research scientists to develop the technology, but they can bring executives to run the business. The government is a public institution. They do not know executives for this reason. No, thank you. And therefore, these companies will be most likely not to succeed. No, thank you. No, thank you. And the state doesn't have this network. So there's two incentives that they get, because the state doesn't network. What is really at the detriment? The detriment of this, what Arjun explains, is that the public image of women worse over time. No, thank you. It makes it essentially worse because they don't get this capital from VC firms, which allows to see. So most likely they want to succeed. But now when they don't succeed, essentially what they get is they become the poster boy for Snapchat, that like is a company that went public, took loads of people's money, and now the share price has halved 3 months after the IPO. This is a public scrutiny of even Spiegel, and now what you continuously get is public scrutiny about wasting public funds from taxpayers' money on companies that do not succeed and do not provide anything useful for the economy. That is what to do. One, they want to see, and two, will hurt the public sentiment. No, thank you. So therefore, the other thing that Arjun provides is the lack of interest for the government to actually do this in the first place. Note, they are very conflict of interest really within this. The government doesn't not just care about the development of women, they care about the aggregate of the economy as a whole. So then what to do? Most of these tech companies are very disruptive. Think about Uber. If now the government will have to invest in a company like Uber, which will displace a lot of taxi jobs, the government doesn't have any incentive to invest in this because more people will lose the job than those that will gain and will benefit the economy. The note as well that Uber is a global company. The state only really cares what happens within that company local. So therefore, they don't have the incentive to do. What will the state actually then fund? They will fund copycat businesses that either worked really well abroad and therefore will be the second player in the market locally. But let's be honest, who wants to be a second player in the market locally? Or they will fund old business that already exists and that are likely to be disrupted by new venture capital funds, which means that the most likely that these companies will succeed is very unlikely. No, thank you. So therefore, this damages the public image of women. So therefore, the second point of class, what we identify, which we actually really agree with the government, are tech jobs good for women? What are the two things that side closing government give us? No, thank you. Is they essentially get the diversification principle and the leadership principle. We agree. Getting women to become leaders in tech, it's a great thing. Becoming women, getting companies to be more diversified is a great thing. But who the hell cares if all these companies are failing and they will continuously be the poster boy of companies, no thank you, that are continuously going down the tube, and they will be labeled as basically publicly, privately companies or somehow that don't really succeed, and they continuously keep getting money to keep them afloat, but they aren't the winners. They aren't going to be the Googles because essentially they do not get the expertise from government to do this. Yes.
Yeah, notice panel that they are deliberating knowing the main rebuttal, which is that they are compatible, is much more likely that an investment bank private invest in this company if they know they have massive funds from the public because it's more safe the investment, so it's not incompatible.
I would like to remind you that we do actually live in this thing called the capitalist world, so this return on profit is. So what the two problems that you get is, one, taxpayers will at some point start revolting against it because saying like, why are we funding all these companies that fail? And two, the government itself is like, well, I go internally, it's like, oh, we got this hot venture capital sucky division, but they aren't able to deliver any return on investment. So therefore, at that point, there's going to be a lot of backlash. Oh, and apart from that, the fact that they are really sucking investment, they're as well displacing loads of jobs such as taxi drivers in the economy, which actually hurts the economy and the government more as an overall, and will probably get the politicians out of government in the next election. So therefore, it will be a mission suicide for those politicians doing it. So therefore, what we provide, we agree, tech jobs for women is very good. What we don't agree with is that the mechanism that Arjun has provided will not benefit those women in actually succeeding, and therefore will harm their public image more than they were originally doing. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the last speech, and I thank you all for the debate. Please go outside, shake hands, and await your answers.